Today I had two great guests with Beth Bowles as well as with Obi, and we're going to have a conversation really about empowering others, empowering leaders. I heard it said recently that if content is king, context is queen.
Hmm.
And often in empowering others and empowering leaders and delegation, there's a lot of content out there, but I find that it's lost in translation or in the implementation of the context. And so both you guys have been incredible leaders, not just in the church, but in corporate America. And so I just want to have that conversation and visit about it a little bit. And Beth, earlier you were talking about uh, a presentation you did on delegation and on empowering others, and you said that it was at you felt like it was a very base low level, but you got all of these questions because I think that really is the desire of leaders today of, you know what, I understand the concept, I understand even the content. How do I contextualize it in my environment? And so, talk to us a little bit maybe about that presentation and also how we can start contextualizing it in our different environments.
Yeah, I think the reality is that delegation and empowering people is hard.
That's true.
It's easy to say, it's hard to do. And there's so much involved with it, with your own kind of sense of security. You have to be able to trust people, you have to be able to let go of things. But if you just take it step by step, really I think the first thing you need to do is identify what 5% of things that you do can only you do.
Okay.
You first have to know what you can't delegate to be able to figure out what you can delegate. And for every role, there's about 95% of it that you could delegate and train someone else to do. There's 5% that stays with you.
So let's talk about that real quick. What kind of exercise could someone do, maybe with their team or with close people close to them, to say, what's the 5% only I can do? What kind of exercise do they do that? Because if you sit down, if I sat down with a piece of paper and wrote down all the things I could do, I promise you it's going to come up to more than 5%. So I have to have other voices in my life that really says, no, somebody else can do that. So talk to me about that.
I think starting with that list is a good point, but then to not reflect on the list by yourself.
Yeah.
So let's say that you were to make your list and you gave it to your staff and you said, go ahead and mark off what you think you could do at least half the way, or mark off what you could do 25% of the way. If you were to go ahead and compile all of those, you begin to see really quickly, what is it that nobody else can check off? Nobody else can check vision casting for Mercygate the way that you can. Nobody else can check off connecting with business leaders within Mount Bellevue. Now, there's a few other things that nobody else could do, but people could teach on Wednesdays, and you have begun to delegate that. People can preach Sundays. People can lead, thrive, and build discipleship models. So to first make that list, that's on you, but then to review that list, that's on the rest of your team.
That's good.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's great. And whenever I'm looking to delegate, I'm thinking about the next level and how, if I'm moving to the next level, what am I going to leave behind? And training people to do the tasks that are going to be left behind is huge. So, documenting how you do things, figuring out, if you're going to delegate to someone, you have to give them the knowledge of how to do it. You have to give them the authority. So letting go of that authority is a hard part. And you have to trust that they're going to be able to do it and let them fail.
Yeah.
So
I think the three hardest things, people delegate tasks, they don't delegate leadership. When you delegate leadership, you have to release three things: authority, power, and finances. Until those three things are really fully vested in the other person, they're not empowered. Just conversation I was having last week, and I will name drop, but I was talking to Dr. Maxwell last week, and we were talking about the idea of trust. He said, well, the best way to get people to trust you is ask them to help you. I said, okay, you got to elaborate on that for a minute. He said, we think that we trust people by giving them something to do, watching them do it. Now that says if I can trust them or not. It's not. He said, you know, if you can trust them, you say, hey, come alongside and help me a little bit. He said, because that brings proximity. Proximity builds trust.
That's good.
And he says, and you need them to trust you before you're asking them, before you then in turn trust them. And so it was really good, just that conversation, because I think the bedrock of all delegation, the bedrock of empowerment has got to be trust. You know, that not free fall trust, but that vulnerable trust.
Yeah.
And so, what else have you guys found in this idea of empowering leaders and delegating properly and healthy?
I think Dr. Maxwell brings up a really good point about bringing them close. Because when you bring somebody close, it implies that they have something that you don't have. And going back to what Beth said, one of the challenges when people do not want to delegate, they don't want to take the time to document their process or to give somebody else keys to what they can do, is really a pride issue. The pride is saying, I'm the only one that can do this, and can't nobody do it like me. Can't nobody do it better than me. That's 100% pride.
Yeah.
But when I invite somebody in, the proximity is key. But also it lets them know there's something inside of me that God has put inside of me that person needs, that person doesn't have. I feel valued, and I feel like I can contribute to this vision. That is great for trust, and that begins to build that bedrock of I cannot begin to delegate. I cannot begin to release. I cannot begin to let go. But I've got to let go of myself first.
Yeah.
Before I can begin to let go of stuff.
Yeah.
I think another part that makes it difficult is the time that it takes. Because it takes me a lot more time to teach you how to do something than it does for me to do the thing I've been doing myself for years. And it's the old, you have to go slow to go fast.
That's good.
So if you slow down and take the time to train someone else and delegate the task, in the long run, you'll move faster as a team, as a company, as an organization. But if you don't have time yourself or make time yourself to slow down and figure out how you're doing things, to document it, and then bring someone in alongside you, then you're going to be stuck doing the same thing you're doing. You'll never be able to release that and move to a next level.
And from a system standpoint, we've been taught, and I've heard you say it is, once you get into a role, begin to plan to get yourself out of that role.
Yeah.
So thinking back to, I believe it's Exodus 18, hope I don't butcher that, that'll look bad. Jethro is talking to Moses, and he's saying, your system is messed up right now.
Yeah.
You have a lot on you. You need to begin to create teams under you. And not just because the burden is too much on one person, but when it's time for you to get to your next, you won't be able to if your hands are in everything right now. So the systems need to be created up front. So when you get to that time of I need to train or I want to train, you won't feel like I don't have that time. In fact, I have a system built underneath that's going to help me be able to step into that role of delegating as opposed to just doing.
The interesting thing about that text in Exodus 18, when Jethro confronts him, he said, what you are doing is too hard on the people.
That's right.
He took it off of him. Because for Moses, I'm just sitting here making judgments all day long. He said, but what you've set up is now harder for the people. There's going to be some, it's going to take them 20 years to get to you to get their matter solved if you're constantly the bottleneck. What's the difference between empowering and delegating? And what are you looking for you to say, you know what? I can delegate a task to this person, but I can empower this person. What is it that you look for, key indicators that says this person is worth is such a terrible word, but this person has some things I'm looking for that I can truly empower them. This person, we're still going to delegate tasks to? What are some things you guys look for?
I would look for accountability, and I would also look for vision.
Define accountability a little bit.
Accountability, I would define it as complete ownership of what has been asked of you.
Okay.
Either it be good or either it be not so good. And accountability is protecting the team that is around you and owning up. And even when things go well, celebrating your team and letting them get the credit.
That's good.
So that way you can move forward to what is next. And from a vision standpoint, it's, if I was just to delegate a task, they would just do it and then be done. Somebody that's forward thinking would say, I got it done, but how could I do it better?
Yeah.
Or how can we do this faster? How can we streamline this? If I can see those two, then that's a key indicator to me that I can empower that person for more than just delegating a task.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that those are exactly what I would say too. And you're looking for someone who's going to contribute and add value, not just someone who's going to do the task and keep coming back to you for what do I do next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if someone has to come back and say, okay, I did 1, 2, 3, what's 4, 5, 6? You want someone that's going to come to you and say, okay, 1, 2, 3 is done. Why don't we do 4, 5, 6 this way?
Mm-hmm.
Give you some ideas, give you some options, and really take ownership. So the vision, yes, but also ownership of that, and someone who carries the heart of whatever your organization or your task or whatever you're doing, someone that carries your heart and your DNA. So you know that when it comes to a decision point, they can go this way or this way. They will know, okay, if Pastor Don assigned me this, would he go left or would he go right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can trust that that person knows you well enough because you've brought them in.
Sure.
You've developed that relationship. They know you well enough that you can trust they're going to go right when you think they should go right.
Yeah, I think what it ends up doing within that is it builds the execution process that they can execute your values, they can execute the way you would do it. Not necessarily maybe line by line, but the overall, this is how I know he's going to want it done,
Mm-hmm.
not all these other things. I remember one of the first jobs, which I had a lot of jobs as a teenager, but I went to work for this company and the guy was doing the task and he finally looked at me and said, how long am I going to do this before you picked it up? I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do it. I got it. Well, I got through doing everything he had given me to do, but there was this other stuff over here that I knew needed to get done, so I just moved over and started doing it too. And I did it the same way that this was done. When he came back, he said, man, you got this done too? I said, yeah. He goes, how'd you know to do it? I said, well, I just assumed this system would work with this. He goes, oh, man, yeah, absolutely. I didn't have to tell you to do that? I'm like, no. I said, I hope I did it right. He goes, you did it. It's right. Because so many times, I think people mean well. Hey, how can I help? What can I do? And it's like, what do you mean? How can you help? Well, there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
Get busy doing.
Yeah. I think the other thing is the fear factor. You have to get over the fear factor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fear of failure and fear of success. I can't be afraid that Obi's going to pick up a task after me and do it better. I want him to pick it up and do it better. But I also can't be afraid to give him the task and let him fail. But on the front end of that, you have to decide what things are okay to fail on.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some things that you can't afford to let fail.
Right.
And so you have to kind of work your way through, I can give you this task. If it fails, that's okay. We can fix it and move on. And then just get over yourself, basically, and let it go.
Yeah.
And that creates a safe space, as we talked about, a safe space where somebody can come in and say, if I do mess up,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to cripple the entire
it's
company,
okay.
but it's okay. And my supervisor is there to pick me up and I can fail forward.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the fact that I messed up, but there's a way to move forward, not just I failed and I can't get back up.
So I think having a healthy conversation on the front end just says, hey, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to delegate this to you. And here is the level, the measure of whatever you can fail in. Here's how much money you can fail in, or whatever the thing. I think that gives the person that you've just empowered so much freedom and confidence to go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you always talk about the 10-80-10.
Yeah.
On the front end, you give them the boundaries, the area of responsibility. Here's what you can do, and let them run with the 80. Come back for the last 10% and say, "Am I on the right track? Is this looking good? Where should I go from here?" Or finish it out.
Yeah. And for me in delegation, that's huge. If I can't do a 10-80-10 conversation with people, and it's more of a 70-30, I'm exhausted. Because now I'm doing all the thinking.
Right.
I'm doing all the details instead of, no, here's the 10% vision of it, or the 50,000-foot view, but I also want to have the 10% final, nuance of it and input to it.
No, I think about the Jesus leadership model where, 2 times I could think of. Number one, he sent them out.
Yeah.
And he didn't say, you must lay hands just like this. You have to pray exactly like this. You need to have them lift their hands like this. He just said, just go out.
Yeah.
So that was great, in which I gave you those tools. Now go forth and put your own little spin on it, but come back with that tolerance of the results that I do expect, or that the Father expects. The second, which I'm thinking about right now, is think about Peter in the garden. And Peter, we all know, is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
And he has a safe space to fail throughout the entire Gospels.
Yeah.
And I remember the guard comes up to arrest Christ, and Peter's like, nah, you're not going to touch my Jesus. Takes the sword and takes off his ear. And Jesus is like, Peter, what are you doing, man? This is my destiny. But that was such a safe space for Peter to be like, man, I almost messed up the destiny of Jesus. But he lovingly rebuked me, showed me what I was supposed to do, which was just to allow the destiny to unfold. And that could have been a way in which he could have been torn down, completely just broken, never to resurrect again. Yeah. But instead, he just went forth, still messed up again. But there was still always that safe space to come back. And then in John, I think it's chapter 21, he's there sitting with Jesus. It's like, do you love me? And they have this back and forth, and that was just such a great time for Peter to know I'm still in that safe space. Yeah. I can still fail, but there's always a way back as long as I know what those boundaries are.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about Luke. Luke 9 and 10 are maybe some of my favorite passages in the Bible, because every would-be leader, novice leader, would read Luke 9. And Luke 10 never would have been written. Luke 9, those guys go out, but they come back absolute. They're griping about, hey, these folks they're over here sharing good news, but they're not part of us. And, we did this and we did that, and we're all this, and we're the bag of chips. And, and I'm looking at this at the end of the 9th chapter, and I'm like, there is no way these 12 guys are going to make it. And Jesus looks out and says, hey, guys, y'all ain't friends. We're going to do this again. And I'm like, what? Do it again? I don't want to know if they have any friends. I want a whole new do-over. But he doesn't. And next thing you know, you're reading chapter 10, he's sending out 70.
Yeah.
And they're a bunch of misfits too. So the 12 are supposed to be the best of best. And by my order of measurement, they failed it all. They come back, and Jesus just says, hey, just be glad your name's written in the Lamb's Book of Life. It's okay. Right. Okay, buddies, let's send them out again. And I'm just like, good Lord, I'm a terrible leader.
Right. And if there's anybody that has a standard of excellence,
God.
I think it's Jesus.
I think it's Jesus.
Right? So just to see how much he trusted the humanity of people, it really speaks to our pride about why can't I trust other people.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're meddling. Back to what you had to say.
I think it's important what Obi said a minute ago about boundaries, and Jesus let them go out and sort of do things the way that they wanted to do things, but there was a baseline.
Yeah.
And it's the same when you're delegating something to someone. If your vision is at the end, we used to call it "bring me a rock." If your vision is I want a rock this big and it has to be round and flat on the bottom and it needs to be blue, but your direction is bring me a rock, and I bring you a rock that's not round and flat on the bottom and blue, and you just go, no, I don't want that rock, just bring me another one.
Yeah.
You haven't given me enough to work with, and you've set me up for failure.
That's good.
So you have to know for yourself, what do I want that's non-negotiable? What are the boundaries, and where's the freedom in this is task or assignment or role?
See, that's good. That's good. And that goes back to you have to slow down to go fast. Because most entrepreneurs, most high-level leaders, pastors, I don't care what you are, they have a vision, but to slow down and say, I need a flat rock that's blue, and this is what I'm looking for. Go and do that. And bring me back that kind of rock. That's hard for them to get to. That's why I don't think that entrepreneurial leadership, high-level leadership needs to be done in a vacuum. It's got to be done with other thinkers, analytical people that can ask the right questions to get visionary leaders to the full picture of what the vision looks like. Because if not, you're bouncing from idea to idea and no idea ever gets fully formulated because it's never been asked the right questions. That's why both of you guys bring such value into my world and my life. Drives me insane just to let you know, but I have to have that because you ask the right questions. It's not, weird questions. I've been in environments where people just, the idea of, well, you're just supposed to ask questions. No, you're supposed to answer the right questions.
Right.
And so you guys have done an incredible job of asking the right questions that lead us to the round rock, flat bottom, and it happens to be blue.
Yeah. Well, if you're not prepared and planned ahead yourself as a leader and know where you want to go, there's no way you can empower and delegate.
That's right.
You have to be there first.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's so good. So good.
And depending on your industry, that will determine how many years you need to be ahead of your people. Now, as you were speaking on Monday, Moses had to be up in front of the people. Then at one season, he had to be above the people.
Right.
And that translates to us as, are you 3 years ahead? Are you 5 years ahead? I think you are 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
And guiding the people along that. But if you are not there, you can't come back and begin to empower here.
Yeah.
Because if you're not ahead, you will only empower for them to stay in your 0.
Right.
Yeah.
But you got to empower them to be thinking up to your 10.
Absolutely.
So it's really imperative that you understand for your industry, how far ahead do I have to be thinking? And if I'm not there, I've got to get there first before I can start to empower people.
And I also think that thinking there, but being agile enough if the industry were to change, or if the environment was to change, or if the market was to change, you have enough agility to move and the vision, the long run, not suffer or collapse or fall apart. So that, it's not so rigid.
Yeah. You have to be flexible.
Yeah. Which goes back to one of my favorite Beatitudes. It's not in the Bible, but it's in my translation. Blessed are the flexible. They'll not get bent out of shape. And so I think that, it's a funny little quip, but it's so true. When you're empowering people as the leader, you have to understand your own flexibility. And where am I flexible and where am I not flexible?
Yeah, that's good.
That becomes huge. And so, anything else to add to our conversation here?
No, I think it's just really important that when you are empowering, it's about accountability, it's about vision, it's about you doing the work up front to create a space where people can feel forward and just be thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Because if you're not thinking ahead, you're dead on arrival.
Yeah. I think what's so important, high-level leaders begin to understand this. Entrepreneurs, they understand it. They're in and out of it. Thinking time is never wasted time.
Mhm.
And if you don't schedule thinking time, especially in our high-paced culture, the urgent is always going to be consuming your thinking time.
Mhm.
And if you don't have time to think, you'll never have time to empower.
Mhm.
And so I think some takeaways for those that are viewing this today, it might be, first of all, schedule some thinking time
That's good.
and really write out what is the top 5% that only you as the leader can do, only you. And then begin to survey your team and figure out who is it that I can start bringing along the journey with me. Um, and then bring some people around that 5% to see if you've really gotten down to the 5% or not. I think that would be huge. And so take these ideas, these concepts, and begin to contextualize them in your environments, in your workspace, and man, let us know, drop us a note, see how it's begun to help you. And thank you for joining us for Beyond the Table. Now go beyond the table and implement it. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.